and welcome to another episode of Who Would Win, a rather popular series on this channel that we do every 9 months apparently. It's a series where we take two champions, throw them onto a battlefield, and we debate who would win according to the lore. So as always, keep in mind that in-game balance is meaningless here. I don't care if Draven can one-shot the enemy support. On a real battlefield, he would be great for increasing morale, but he would be useless as a soldier who throws his two blades away in the middle of a battle. Same as last time, you guys suggested the battles on our Discord, and I tried to pick the more interesting matchups, so don't expect any Aurelian versus Jinx scenarios. So, without further ado, let's get on it. In the first round, let's have a look at Gallio versus Velkoz. I picked this match because using these two champions, I can teach you something you probably didn't even know about. First of all, with the recent addition to Demasia's lore, we learned that Gallio is something more than we thought. The first hint that something is wrong we got was when Swain got reworked many months ago. Specifically, the hint was this quote:
"His secret died with his sculptor."
But then we got a piece of art that was used to explore Gallio's background during his development. From it, it was obvious that Riot had some special plans with Gallio. After all, why would they randomly put Swain's demon on Gallio's concept? Especially since Swain is the only champion with a quote against Gallio. And the cherry on top is that it is Swain's demon that gives him the visions. Swain would be able to learn about Gallio because of the demon he has. With that said, it is just an in-game interaction, and we don't have any proofs that Swain knows what Gallio is in his story. The reason why I brought all of this up is because this piece of art recently re-emerged as a canon piece of art. Or at least most of it had. It was finally used in the second issue of Lux's comic. There, Lux stole this parchment from the Mage Seeker's vault and she showed it to Silas. The comic shows the exact copy of this piece of art, but it makes sure to not show the demon. The key takeaway from this comic is what Silas learned from the parchment. He learned that Gallio, and possibly all of Petricite, doesn't simply mitigate magic. It absorbs magic and it saves it for later use. That's why Gallio only wakes up when he's fighting against mages. Should Demacia drag Gallio onto a battlefield without mages, he wouldn't even be able to move. Now let's have a look at his opponent. Velkoz is not a Watcher as some of you may believe. He is merely a scout for the Watchers and for the Void. Because the Watchers can't fit through all the different tears and rifts around Runeterra, they have to send out their minions to gather information. Some, like Khazix, consume mortal creatures and evolve themselves with the information they just gathered. They do this to get better at killing, so they can kill even greater creatures, so they can evolve into even greater killers. But other Voidborns, such as Velkoz, disintegrate whatever is of interest to them, gather its information, and instead of using it for themselves, they carry it back to the Watchers. If you want to be specific, Velkoz is gathering data and he's bringing it back to a hidden void rift in Tokogol, which is an area near Freljord. So now you may be thinking, what would happen if a Voidborns Magic was absorbed by Gallio? Would Gallio go crazy like the Darkin? Would he become corrupted? Would he turn around and destroy his home city? Well, none of this would happen. And we know this because of a sneaky tweet by Laurie Golding, who's the narrative director at Riot Games. When someone asked him what kinds of magic we can find on Runeterra, we got an answer that opened a brand new window into theory crafting. We learned that Runeterra holds 3 kinds of magic. We have celestial magic, that includes stuff like Aurelian's powers or even runic magic. Which now makes sense since we know that the world runes were tools used by the celestials. Then there is elemental magic. This includes anything from the Yeti magic to stuff like chronomancy. And then there is spirit magic, which contains Vastaya, Yordle, Shadow and necromancy magic. But the explanation doesn't end here. We also learned that some kinds of magic are just combinations of the primal sources. For example, runic magic is a combination of celestial and elemental magic, just like the ascended magic. Hemomancy is a combination of elemental and spirit magic. And Hextech is a combination of elemental, spirit and technology. But the reason why I even started talking about this is because we also learned about the Void. And the Void is not magic at all. This makes sense because magic comes either from Celestials in the Mortal Dimension, from Runeterra, which is a planet in the Mortal Dimension, or the Spirit Realm, which is also in the Mortal Dimension. The Void is in a dimension of its own, so it makes sense that whatever forces the Void is using would not be magic that we know. So what does this mean for our friend Gallio? Well, this would mean that he's pretty much screwed. Since Gallio would never technically face a magic wielder, he would never wake up. So we can only imagine what Velkoz would do to a sleeping victim. Next up we have Yorick versus Khazix. This would be another interesting duel, because if you've been paying attention at all during the last 2 minutes, you would know what Khazix can do by now. Again, Khazix is a Voidborn creature that likely escaped into the material realm through one of the many rifts in Icathia. As far as we know, he is much less intelligent than someone like Velkoz, and that's why he is not being used as a scout by the Watchers, but rather he roams around and consumes what he can. Again, in case you have the memory of a goldfish, like many other Voidborn, when Khazix kills its prey, he consumes its essence and he adapts to be a better hunter. In a way, he reminds me of another great essence collecting character.
I am Dehaka. I take essence.
So what would happen if Khazix had to face Yorick? Let's say that they would meet on the cursed lands of the Shadow Isles. If they fought anywhere else, Yorick would just die. Because let's be honest, Yorick is still just a man with a shovel. Yes, he was touched by the mist. And yes, his mind can't be dominated because he carries a vial of holy water on his neck. And yes, he can command lesser souls because he was touched by the mist and he can speak with the dead. But should he ever leave the Shadow Isles, he would be just a man with a shovel, who can hear the dead. So, we know that Yorick is on a quest to figure out what happened to the Shadow Isles. And preferably he's on a quest to stop the spreading of the mist. That's why Yorick occasionally commands a lesser damned soul to go into the mist and bring back whatever it can find. Unfortunately, not a single soul ever returned. So should he face Khazix, 2 things would probably happen. First, Yorick would try to command ghouls to attack Khazix for him, but those ghouls are way less intelligent than even Khazix. On top of that, Khazix is a way better hunter, so all those ghouls would probably just feed Khazix. Then the 2 would have to fight each other head on, and in that scenario there is no way Yorick could survive. That is, if he didn't have the Maiden of the Mist always lingering over his shoulder. You see, the Black Mist wouldn't want Yorick to die to a Voidborn, because the Mist wants to claim Yorick for itself. And there is no doubt Khazix would consume him entirely, so should he be in a real danger, the Maiden of the Mist would step in to protect Yorick. And here is where the fun begins. Outcome number 1. The Mist fights back Khazix, and eventually all of its damned souls would overwhelm him and destroy him. Which means that Yorick would win, even though it wouldn't be him who would win the battle. Outcome number 2. The Mist doesn't do anything and Khazix kills Yorick. After he is dead, the Mist steps in. It destroys Khazix and it claims Yorick's body. So in the end, should they fight around the Shadow Isles, there would be no way for Khazix to win, with only a slight chance of Yorick surviving. Next we have another popular request, almost as popular as Shen vs Zed, but instead it is Zed vs Jin. If I remember correctly, I believe we did have a look at Zed vs Shen in a previous episode. But Zed vs Jin is a whole another level. Zed himself is a really powerful ninja, formerly of the Kinko Order. Quite recently we learned that shadow magic in general has ties to Nocturne. So like it or not, Riot embraced the meme and Zed might be using techniques that make him go in and out of Nocturne's realm. Either way, shadow magic and presumably Zed's shadow techniques are extremely dangerous and deadly. So if Zed is able to summon shadow clones and he's able to disperse into the shadows, what chance would Jin stand? Well, surprisingly, Jin would stand pretty well. Jin is a famous murderer who likes to turn every single one of his victims into a masterpiece. Every time a new victim is found, their bodies are usually twisted and chopped into grotesque forms, which in Jin's eyes is art. His favorite tools are the pedal mines, which are the flowers you can see in Awaken. These mines explode into razor-sharp petals that slice and dice anything within reach. According to his short story, one of the reasons why Jin adores these mines is because they always paint the entire room in red. Over time, Jin turned into a legendary mastermind killer because his plans were always flawless, and he even became known as the Golden Demon. Because Jin is always carefully planning all his encounters ahead, it is safe to say that Jin wouldn't fight Zed head-on, face to face. He would definitely lure Zed into a trap. Because of this single reason, I am pretty sure Jin would be the winner by default. No one ever managed to escape one of Jin's traps, and I don't think Zed would be the first one to do so. But let's imagine Zed would be smart enough to send a clone to trigger Jin's trap. If Zed was smart enough to do that, I think Jin would be aware of that possibility, and he would always have a plan B. In fact, I am pretty sure no matter what Zed would do, Jin would always be a step ahead of him. Remember, Jin was hunted by Zed for years, so I am sure Jin would know what to expect by now. But if you still don't believe me that Jin would win, don't take it from me, take it from Shen. He is the one who found out that Jin escaped his prison, and it was Shen himself who decided to cooperate with Zed in order to capture Jin again. Shen asked Zed because he knew that alone they wouldn't be able to capture him. And if Shen is so sure that he decided to work together with someone who killed his master and ruined the Kinko order, I am pretty sure it's safe to say that Jin would win against Zed either way. Next we have Mordekaiser versus Swain. This would be an interesting battle because this would be the battle for the Immortal Bastion. We recently talked about Mordekaiser, so if some of the things you're about to hear don't make sense to you, make sure to watch our Mordekaiser and LeBlanc videos. Mordekaiser is the lord of the afterworld called Midnarak Nun. Even though he is currently banished in the realm he created, he made sure to bind the heart of the fortress inside the Death Realm to the heart of the Immortal Bastion in the Material Realm. So there is a chance that Mordekaiser might eventually break through the Well of Death that's sitting beneath Noxus. And should that ever happen, it is safe to say that Noxus would be doomed, and at least half of Valoran would follow immediately. The reason why Mordekaiser would be so unstoppable is because the Afterworld was his master plan. Throughout his second reign, which was after he died and he was summoned back from the dead, he made sure to kill as many people as he could. And although many thought that he was just a cruel tyrant who went mad, there was always a reason behind it. Because every single person he killed would be waiting for him in the afterworld. So it didn't matter that in the end people got sick of his tyrannical rule, and that Mordekaiser was betrayed from within and banished into the realm of the dead. It didn't matter at all. In fact, he knew it would happen eventually. Because all they have done was to bring the king back into the kingdom, which was now full of thousands of damned souls, ranging from simple workers to the deadliest war generals. So should Mordekaiser ever break out of his realm, this eternal army of damned souls would come with him. At this point, it doesn't matter what we say about Swain. Even if he was a celestial demigod, Mordekaiser would still be a challenge. The main issue is that Swain's demonic hand comes from the heart of Noxus, not from the Well of Death. Only LeBlanc knows it exists. But the demon likely comes from one of the other magical artifacts that Mordekaiser stored below the Immortal Bastion. In fact, I don't think it's a coincidence that Swain's demon granted him the power of sight and knowledge. After all, Mordekaiser was on a quest to understand the realm of the dead as well as he could. He was essentially gathering anything that would give him knowledge. So I am pretty sure Mordekaiser locked Swain's demon below the bastion because it held the knowledge Mordekaiser wanted. The problem is that the demon doesn't make Swain unstoppable. The raw power Swain got was actually not that great. The best thing Swain got out of the pact was insight. Casting deadly spells seems like a side effect. I say this, but we honestly don't know much about the pact Swain made. What we do know is that in a real battle, there is no way he would be able to stop Mordekaiser. No matter what advantage I try to give Swain, he wouldn't be able to stand against the combined forces of tens of thousands of damned souls. And the last battle we will have a look at is Camille versus Irelia. I decided to go for this one because it would be a cool battle of blades. Nothing else. I don't think we need a long introduction for Camille. She's the principal intelligencer of the Pharaoh's family, one of the richest and most influential families in Piltover. The principal intelligencer is something like an assassin enforcer. They act as the right hand of the head of the family, and they are trained to never fail at their task. That's why Camille's body was augmented. Essentially, it was to make sure that she was flawless, and she would carry out any order. Obviously, her biggest tools are her legs, but her hips also hide grappling hooks, her Hextech heart can create a defense matrix, and her eyes can precisely calculate her moves. Fun fact, even though Camille can get a shield in-game, that shield represents the fact that she can analyze your moves and avoid all future attacks. On the other side, we have Irelia, a teenager who mastered the ancient art of silk dancing. Although Irelia simply liked to dance, allegedly these dances were connected to the spirit of Ionia. This was later proven when she realized that she could use her dance moves to throw blades around without touching them. However, we never got more information on this, so we don't know Irelia's limits. Is she able to just manipulate blades? Or can she also weave elements like Thalia? All we know is that she can move the blades, and the blades are actually chipped pieces of her family crest. So let's stick to those. So even though Irelia is able to manipulate blades in the air, she would still have trouble with Camille. See, Camille is an expert assassin capable of killing her targets with perfect precision. Irelia is an inexperienced teenager who learned about her real abilities a couple of years ago. On top of that, Camille's body was designed to deal with guns. Primitive guns, but guns nonetheless. I'm pretty sure her defense matrix would be able to deal with a flying knife too. And because Irelia can't swap battle stances or use different tools, Camille would be able to easily analyze the one technique Irelia can use. So in this long-awaited battle of bigger tools, Camille would be superior. That was the 5 battles I wanted to talk about. I know all of you want to go back to playing teamfight tactics now. In fact, the more clever of you are probably playing as I speak. If you like this video, feel free to tell me in any way possible, because the Versus series is absolutely driven by the viewers. With that said, if we manage to hold onto our release schedule, I'll see you in 9 months. Hey, did you know that we have social media and Twitch where we talk about other League facts and stories? And did you know that we have need mugs and shirts too? The links to all of that will be below. And as always, thank you, come again.